So I woke up this morning wondering, what could I do that would help you guys understand where the industry is going? What type of innovations can you expect? How are those innovations going to impact you in the future? And ultimately, how is it going to impact your bottom line? So as I thought about it, I sought out one of my most badass friends, because remember, that's my motto. I got some badass friends. And I have a gentleman that I've known for the entire time I've been with Summit. His name is Dean Strathman, and he's a remarkably knowledgeable guy. But we're not going to waste time talking about his background. I'll let him introduce himself. But he was kind enough to take a few minutes out of his busy schedule and come join me at the NTEA conference. So first of all, I want to thank you, Dean, for hanging out with me. Appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Ken.
So why don't we get started? Tell everybody a little bit about your responsibilities and tell them who you're with, for starters.
Yeah, so Dean Strathman, as you said, I'm the Vice President of Sales for Vanair. I've been with Vanair for about 14 years. I came to Vanair through one of the many acquisitions that they did, which was a company, small town Kansas company, by the name of Arc, which, as a matter of fact, ironically, was just down the road from kind of the company that you work for, and been in truck equipment for just about 20 years.
What is your primary responsibility at Vanair?
So my title is Vice President of Sales, and at Vanair, I think that means a lot of things. For Vanair, I'm responsible for, of course, sales strategy. I'm responsible for product roadmap and vision, dealer distribution development, and looking at emerging markets and helping lead us and our engineering team on design and development for where we think the market is going to go, and also for developments and moving into new markets.
So this podcast is brand new, and I'm honored that you thought enough of me to come hang out with me for a few minutes. But our podcast mission is singular in that we are here to serve the community of field mechanics and the guys that employ them, and help a few of the vendors that service them. And by that I mean I want to get them information that they're just too busy. And a lot of guys would probably love to come to Indianapolis, to come to the NTEA show, and they can't because they're too busy, trying to take care of their customers. So what would you say Vanair's main focal point is in terms of solving the daily needs of field technicians that utilize your equipment? What's the overall thinking behind what you guys are trying to accomplish?
That's a big question, and there's a lot of tentacles to that. And so I think what I would say is that from our perspective, there's no one-size-fits-all solution for anybody. We address a lot of different markets, a lot of different vocations, and a wide range of products and a wide range of customers. And so it kind of depends on the product group, and we're doing different things within different product groups. Again, some of that vocation driven. But probably the most notable thing and the newest thing that I could talk about that we're doing at Vanair that I think can have, it's something that is gaining more attention in the media, and I think there's a lot of questions and concern around it, and there's definitely a lot of opinions about it. But it's the discussion today about what's going to happen in when things are being pushed toward EV and EV space, and what about the chicken and the egg of people want to move to EV, but there's not infrastructure, and what about the regulation and pressures, governmental pressures, and or fiscal responsibility or global responsibility for CO2 emissions reductions? How do we address those things? And at the same time, how can we, with some of those solutions, address some of the challenges and problems that have happened in the market and in many markets over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, during COVID and beyond, with supply chain interruptions and the lack of availability of chassis, and how do we help the community out there be able to extend the life of their vehicle, reduce operating costs, and be able to do some of those things, depending where you are geographically, that are either mandated by regulation or things that you feel good about from a climate perspective, and how do we help them do that? So we've brought some solutions to the market that are pretty novel, and that's probably the most notable thing that we're talking about here at the show this week.
So, because I have a background with you, I'm a sales rep for a major body company. Obviously, I know a little bit more than the average technician, average owner that's buying one of our vehicles. So I want to go back in time a little bit and talk about the all-in-one auxiliary power unit solution. You guys were one of the early originators and pioneers of these multifunction units. Just for the sake of the audience, what these units are auxiliary power units that were diesel-driven systems that provided air, they provided electric generation power, they provided welding capability, they gave you crank assist. They also had the potential to provide hydraulic power. And did I miss anything? That's pretty much what they did. And how do you think that you guys did in serving that market? Would you categorize it as a successful, and is it still a success? Where do you stand in that space?
I think that success can be measured in a lot of different ways by a lot of different people. You're right that I spoke about a small town company that I came from in the northeast corner of Kansas. They were one of the early people to market in this all-in-one concept, this multifunction concept. There were only 2 in the market at that point in time. And I can tell you that I put a lot of miles out trying to prove and validate the concept of that product. I could say, being the small company that we were, I think before they were acquired by Vanair, I think at the height, they might have had, 25 employees. We had 1 engineer at the time. So I think that we had a really novel concept, proven so, because you can see what's progressed in the market since then. That was in the early 2000s, late 90s into early 2000s. So success to me was that we brought a concept to reality, and we made enough of an impact and enough of a ripple effect in the market that not only did it start to become embraced by some of the people that are listening to this podcast today, the people that are the users of it, but we validated the concept to enough that there's 7 or 8 competitors in that space right now, right? And so success is that we helped develop and pioneer a market. From that, the other successes are that we've learned a lot by gaining lots of competition. What the benefit is to this market, and I view this as a success as well, is that competition drives competitiveness, drives innovation, and some of those people taught us how to do a lot of things that we probably weren't very good at in the beginning, which was voice of the customer stuff. And but we've definitely learned and evolved as a company. Some of the early products certainly had some shortcomings. As a growing company as we were, I think just as a quick note, we've grown significantly in my time since the acquisition. The product group that we're talking about is 1,400 times the size for our company of what it was then. And where we may have been the leader and had the lion's share of the market at that point in time, we've far from commanded any kind of a leadership position in that market over the course of the last several years. We've slid, and that's why it's became a priority for us, and we've redeveloped new products, and we've got some new alignments, and we've got some fantastic things that we're going to bring to the customers over the course of the next couple of years, and we're excited to get the opportunity to go back out and earn the trust of those people again here in the future.
That's really super good to hear, because what happens in this community, everything started with a Facebook group, and people are loyal and people are very outspoken when they're unhappy and happy about a product. And those of us that are advocates of, Vanair, we champion the product, and we're obviously deeply invested and in every company's success, but especially Vanair, because you guys were the ones that help us bring new solutions to our members. And by that I mean we got an issue with excessive idling. All of this EPA regulation is basically strangling these diesel motors, and the after treatment systems are having a difficult time lasting. And so we've got to reduce the amount of hours that we're putting on these motors, irrespective of the carbon reduction goals. Just plain old common sense. If diesel fuel's costing nearly $6 a gallon, we don't want to waste it. So along those lines, I'm excited because I think you guys are going to, again, lead the pack. So am I right? Are you guys doing something cool in that regard?
We have a lot of things going on in that space, a tremendous amount. And we have developed an entire new product category. The product category is all based around the concept of electrified power equipment. And from that, we come up with the acronym EPIC, EPEQ. Again, that's the acronym for electrified power equipment. And that product group, basically what we've done, we've taken any product that would have been in the Vanair portfolio of products that would have been, say, in a 50 horsepower or less output, whether it was slave engine driven, PTO driven, hydraulically driven, and we're electrifying it. And then from that even further, we're looking at how do we reduce idle time? How do we reduce that fuel consumption? How do we decrease the frequency of PMs needed on that vehicle to increase uptime, especially from idling, the things that can come with downtime on the vehicle itself? And then, there's a lot of challenges and questions and things that people have about why I would or wouldn't do something, and we're trying to address all of those.
When it comes to this whole idle mitigation deal, when I, as a salesman, am calling on a procurement professional and I'm pitching, the benefits of some of your technology, and I'm incorporating that into our overall solution for a mechanic crane body, it sounds great and everything's wonderful. But then in reality, when I go back out in the field 6 months later, I find out that the guy won't turn his truck off. He's just going to run his diesel truck, and he's got this APU in the back, and it kind of fights against the entire theory. The number one argument I was getting was, dude, it's 120 degrees. I got to have my truck running, or it's minus 20 and I got to stay warm. So yeah, there was no forced compliance. My understanding is you guys are dealing with that issue with this idle mitigation technology. You're doing something about the HVAC. Am I premature, or am I on the right track?
No, you're tracking the right way. And I think it's important. I want to take one step back, because you and I are sitting here talking with the term idle mitigation because you and I both have had a previous conversation. We know exactly what that means. But I think there's a lot of people that don't understand exactly what is idle mitigation. So let me just take one step back. Idle mitigation in its simplest form is exactly what the terms are saying, and it's a way to mitigate or reduce idle time as much as possible on a vehicle. And of course, there's different types of methodologies about what type of equipment you want to have on your truck and why your truck's idling in the first place. And some of it has been, PTO-driven equipment that's been on the truck that you may argue prevents the ability to not idle because you need to run the truck in order to be able to power some of that equipment. And then, of course, over the last of the maybe decade or so, significant growth has come from what you just referenced as an APU type product or an auxiliary power unit type product, the multifunction that we just referenced and otherwise, with the main purpose of that being I want to get away from idling my truck and I want to quit running the PTO. It's a different mentality that some people take. There's some significant initial acquisition costs associated with that type of product, but people are looking at total cost of ownership and long term. But what most of those people found, and I've got fleet reports, telematic fleet reports from some very large fleets, hundreds of vehicles and fleets that have a pretty even blend of both PTO-driven equipment and auxiliary power units. And the reality of it is the idle time across the entire fleet didn't really change, whether they had an auxiliary power unit or whether they had a PTO-driven piece of equipment. So while they were seeking to get the benefit that was being preached by the by the companies that were out there selling these auxiliary power units, what they failed to be able to overcome was to train an operator in order to be able to turn that truck off and keep it turned off. And so we've continued to drive solutions that are going to be able to address that. And so the first part of that, again, idle mitigation is basically an integrated controller that integrates behind the dash into a vehicle. It would communicate with the vehicle through either J1939 or OBD. So it's communicating with the ECM and TCM, understanding what's going on within the vehicle itself. And condition-based, so obviously certain safety parameters have to be met. Vehicle has to be in park. Maybe park brake has to be set. Certain amount of time has to have elapsed, or whatever the owner or the fleet manager determines all those parameters need to be. Those are programmable. And once those parameters have been met, the controller automatically forces the vehicle off, which obviously forces you to reduce your idle time. And it would then have a condition-based restart, right? We all know there's a lot of ancillary loads on these trucks today. There's telematics, there's inverters, there's work lights, there's safety lights, there's strobes, all of these things out there. So condition-based restart, and that could be based on what is the voltage of the battery or the chassis itself, or in most cases, because of all the ancillary loads that are out there today, if you want to optimize the amount of idle mitigation, what's being encouraged is to add a secondary or an auxiliary battery, lithium in most cases, because that's where the technology is at today, to extend the off time, the shutdown time. And so your condition-based restart may be on the auxiliary battery voltage. The arguments that quickly come about, as you said, I'm out here in, Minot, North Dakota, and I once saw a dog frozen to a fire hydrant in Minot. It's cold out there. I get it. So you're in Minot, North Dakota, or you're in Phoenix, and you're out here changing a tire, and it's 140 degrees coming off the asphalt. And the guys, I'm going to tell you what, if you want to keep technicians are hard enough to find these days. And if you want to keep technicians, you've got to provide some creature comfort, right? And not to mention the fact that some of these guys are using these trucks for their office as well, right? So you had to be able to address that climate control with the vehicle off. And so Vanair is doing that also. And so to build out a full end-to-end solution, and there are some that are far beyond just the idle mitigation portion, and I can get into far more of what Epic all offers, but we have, with that same auxiliary battery pack, we are running a secondary electric air conditioning pump, and we are doing fuel-fired heat. This system allows you to use the native controls in the cab of the vehicle to be able to turn on heat and AC, and we're using the condenser on the vehicle, and then we're adding auxiliary fans and such like, but allows you then to have heat and AC with the vehicle off.
So from a layman's perspective, what you're doing is you're not asking them to make a behavioral change. They're going to be able to operate their systems, their HVA systems, the way they've always done, and they're not going to be an appendage or another apparatus inside the cab that they have to contend with. Am I correct?
That's absolutely correct. The two ways to reduce idle time and reduce costs, which are, and of course carbon emissions, which is important. I want to keep touching on that. Is either one, it's operator behavior, which is a hard thing to do and a hard thing to overcome, or be able to provide them a solution that does that for them, but gives them all the feature benefit that they would have had before.
Now, from my perspective, I work for a body company, and we want to provide solutions, and we're seeing unprecedented price increases across the board, and we have long delays in getting the product to the end user. That being said, there's always been this argument where there's underutilization of the crane, which makes it difficult to justify running a crane with a PTO, running full hydraulics. But the offset was the conventional electric over hydraulic cranes were underwhelming. In other words, they didn't have proportional valves, and there were some other deficiencies there. Do you see your technology as being able to be incorporated into the crane solutions in a way that will allow us to reduce some cost and help get that same amount of productivity from the crane itself? Do you see, in other words, can we get a better electric crane? How's that reworded?
Yes, and it exists today. So one of the things that we've done to further expand on this epic product line is that we have developed, and this is a broad stroke term that is interpreted a lot of different ways by people in the industry, but I'm gonna use probably the most common term that's being used in the industry today, but it's an EPTO, which basically means electric PTO. And so what we have, again, by this same auxiliary battery power pack, we have an electric PTO that allows you to either run, you can run an electric crane off the battery itself, or, as you said, maybe some people viewed the electric over hydraulic cranes as underwhelming, I believe is the word you just used. Mm-hmm. So for those that are used to the performance and the capabilities of a hydraulic crane, we are providing this electric PTO that provides hydraulic output so that you can run the same hydraulic crane that you had before. And there's phases, if you will, of what crane body manufacturers are going to do from an interface standpoint. Today, your system is, PTO driven. It's got a gear pump on there. We turn it on, and it's running and consuming horsepower, whether you're stroking that crane pendant or anything on your crane controls or not, right? And it's just bypassing fluid and continually creating heat and consuming power. Well, that's obviously not the most efficient way to do it from a battery perspective. So our system is going to initially, again, phase one for product, depending on where your crane body manufacturer is going to allow them to put my system on the exact same crane valves, crane controls, everything that they have today, interface with the same pendant, and allow it to work in a way that it would today without the operator knowing anything different other than, man, this is really quiet. The next phase of that, and some have already started to make the move this way, is that the proportional controls, the valving, and the things that are on there today that are required because fluid is continually flowing, in lieu of the pressure-sensitive things that you're doing in the crane control buttons, controlling a solenoid valve, which regulates the amount of flow, that would go away, and that then through communication, through wiring and programming, controls the motor speed on the hydraulic pump that allows us to vary the motor speed based on demand, and thus, when you're not moving the crane, you're completely shut off, and there is no power draw.
Okay, that's obviously, from my perspective, that's freaking amazing. That's really cool. All that being said, how do we translate that into value for an end user? Because when I talk to these guys that have been around the block, when they're talking, yeah, okay, that's just some more technology that's going to break. And then there's another failure point, another reason why I can't use my truck, on a given job, because you guys got all these wires and circuit boards and all these things doing, and they fail. And then what am I going to do? How am I going to complete my job? How would you address those concerns?
Well, the first thing that I would say to your group out there is anything that you put in the dirt can break, or none of you guys would have a job. I mean, that's why we're here, right? So we're in the service network. So our objective, obviously, is to be able to provide the most reliable solutions that we can, and moving to some more electrified solutions instead of some of the more mechanical solutions out there. If you look at the design of electrical components versus mechanical, there's a thing called the bathtub curve, right? So from a performance standpoint and a design life, an electrical component is either again, if you look at, high wall, low bottom, and then high at the end. So it either fails very early and it's due to a design thing, which, you root out in your test and your design, or it has a long, reliable life until it's made it to the end of its life cycle. And then, of course, it fails. So, but from the electrical standpoint, we don't envision that we're going to have a whole lot of problem with anything from an electrical standpoint. There's electronics on vehicles for decades. This isn't anything new. And the other thing that we're doing to be able to provide some comfort to our customers is that we're adding telematics systems and telematics capability to all of this, so that at any time, and we can interface with some of the other big names out there. If you aren't interested in looking at our telematics solutions, we can work to interface with the Geotabs and the Verizon Connects of the world and such the like. But when people move to electrification, what we found is that there's a far greater need or desire to understand what's going on with the battery and the different components, not only to understand, am I being efficient, but to know, am I going to be able to make it through my day? Have I got the right system? Is it going to operate for me? Am I going to be able to reduce downtime? And the data points that we're feeding back through the telematics are going to give the user the ability to see and understand exactly the condition of the components at any time and exactly how he's used them through the day, to help him make a more informed decision about whether he's overbought what he needed and he can reduce his specification in the future, or whether he's got some components maybe that don't appear that they should be acting within normal parameters. And it's going to get more to, instead of a diagnostic approach as we talk about servicing our customers, but to a prognostic approach, where we're going to be talking about predictive technologies and things like that. And so that's where we're headed.
Okay, so I can see where this is also going to apply to the equipment that these guys are working on. So the change that you guys are driving is somewhat disruptive, but at the same time, every company that wants to survive in the future is going to also have to adapt to these new requirements. Am I on the right track there?
I think you're on the right track, and I think it's important for me to say that having disruptive technology is part of what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. That's how you drive innovation, right? And that's how you drive new markets, and that's how you drive market shift. And there's things that are cyclical, right? Mm-hmm. The all-in-one solution back in the early 2000s was a disruptive technology, right? And again, I said it early when we started talking. I don't think there's a one size fits all for anybody. And that's why we've taken the approach to offer multiple different platforms from our product offerings, so that it gives people a choice.
So I appreciate the time, and I promise I'd keep it short. I could keep you here for an hour because I'm obviously fascinated by this topic. What I want to get across to our audience, and if you guys like what you're hearing and you want to learn more, then perhaps you'll comment and tell me that you want to know more, and I might be able to persuade Dean to come back and we can go do a deeper dive. But I did promise him a limited amount of time because he's super, super busy and he's super popular here at NTEA, to kind of bring this to a conclusion for our little visit today. Would you say that Vanair could make a public commitment to the guys and gals that are making these expenditures for these vehicles, that you understand their pain and you understand that their investment is tremendous? In other words, they're making giant leaps of faith in the technology that we're bringing, and that you guys are committed to delivering a quality product, and that you want to listen to their feedback. Would I be out of hand saying that that's the case for Vanair?
You're absolutely correct. And I guess one of the things that is helping Vanair evolve is that, and we refer to it internally as VOC, right? It's voice of the customer. And we aren't anything without you all. And so I will commit to you, Kenny, here. You asked me to try to come on here and be unbiased. I just want to talk about things going on in the industry. I'm not here to give an overall sales pitch. I do want to help understand the needs of the customer. I do want to help explain why we've made the decisions that we've made, but I'll make a commitment to you that if your user group has any specific topics in regard to electrification, where it's moving. All of the seminars that I go to, the people that I talk to from chassis manufacturers and beyond, what are we hearing? If you've got questions, concerns specifically, I'll make a commitment to come back to that and meet with you again. And again, if there's other technologies out there that are existing today that somebody out there has got, hey, have you ever thought about this, or why do you do it this way? And you'd like to understand from a manufacturer's perspective or from a design perspective why we do things one way versus another, or maybe you'll enlighten us and you'll lead us to the next great thing. But I'm open to talk about those things too.
Well, you know how I feel about you. I got a long-term appreciation for you personally and the company. You guys have been great to me, have helped me learn a lot and helped me make more sales, and that's very valuable. But today, it's me shifting my focus away from my own personal benefit to building this community, because I made a promise to them that I was going to look out for their best interests, and I had their back. And thank you for helping me fulfill my promise today. And I really appreciate your time. It means a lot. And it's going to be awesome as we start to help this community understand that there's a whole bunch of us that want to see them be successful.
And Kenny, I just wanted to say that I appreciate you asking me and inviting me to join you today to do this, and giving me the opportunity to share with your users that we are committed to them. And I think any company will stumble. It's the measure of a good company is how do you respond to that, and what do you do from there. And again, trials and tribulations come with anything that you do, but we're here, we're committed, and we want to be the best company out there. We want to win.
Well, as I said, thanks so much, Dean, and work. I keep saying work. I had another thing in my head, but our podcast is called Service Trucks USA, and our job is to help your business grow, help your business run so your business doesn't run you. So we thank you very much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed an update from NTEA, and we're looking forward to having another chat with you real soon. Okay, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Y'all be safe. Bye.